Today I'm trading my professional Leica camera for this, a modern smartphone, the Galaxy Z Flip 5, and we're going to answer one important question. Is this thing any good for photography? Thank you to Squarespace for sponsoring today's video. So this video is inspired simply by my curiosity around mobile photography. I've known about these foldable LCD phones that Samsung is making for a while now, but the Galaxy Z Flip 5 came out last week and I thought this was the perfect opportunity to finally try one out. Now the reason I'm so intrigued by mobile photography is because for the most part cameras like this one are not really advancing technologically. Mobile photography has a lot of room to get better, and it's fun for me to share my perspective as a professional photographer using these devices because I'm like everyone else. I hope one day this camera phone that is in my pocket every day can make an image as good as this Leica mirrorless camera. But are we getting any closer to that with this Galaxy Z Flip 5? That's what I wanted to find out. Now this thing has two cameras. One is a 12mm ultra wide equivalent and the other is a standard 24mm. Both focal lengths seem like they should be good and very versatile. Also, this allows you to capture raw photos, which for me is a big deal because I think that is the benchmark for mobile photography right now, and it's a good comparison to what I'm used to with a mirrorless and allows me to provide a lot of perspective. So all the photos I made in today's video were raw files captured on this phone in pro mode. Now, the things that I liked about this camera, first is the foldable design. I thought this was a little bit of a marketing gimmick from Samsung, but there are a lot of practical uses for this. The main practical use is the fact that you have a tripod built into the camera. So if you're doing a long exposure or a time lapse for video or just recording yourself or making pictures of yourself, you can simply set the camera up on a flat surface and you have a tripod. Some of the other things this foldable design has is the ability to essentially use this like a flip out screen. So let's say you want to make a photo at a low angle, or maybe you're capturing a photo that is kind of awkward or something like that. Having the ability to flip the phone in half and get a top-down view is great and something that I found useful when we were out testing it. Now another great feature on this flip out design is the giant screen on the front of the phone. This is apparently one of the biggest upgrades to the Z Flip line series right now, and a cool feature that's built into this phone is the fact that you can wave your hand to that screen when you have it unfolded and set up like a tripod, and you will trigger the timer on the phone. So you can create a selfie image of whatever you're doing with relative ease, which I like that as well. And I was a little bit skeptical at first, but I found myself finding reasons to use it. When I was unboxing some prints the other day, I thought to myself, yo, this would be a great time to set this phone up just on my desk and capture an image of me holding these prints to put on my social media. So there's definitely some uses for this. Now, as far as the image quality goes, I would say this phone falls in line with what you would expect from mobile photography. There's no real big highlights that I can speak on. Some of the images look great, some look less than great, but this is kind of the standard when it comes to mobile photography right now. It seems like with any mobile device, when you're in a situation where the lighting conditions are optimized for the sensor, you can get a good photo. And when you're in situations that are less than optimal, sometimes the results can vary. Now, as far as editing goes, I did 2 editing tests with this camera. I did some raw files in Lightroom Mobile. This was the first time I used Lightroom Mobile on an Android device, and it worked exactly the same as it works on every other device, and that was nice. Those raw files seemed very malleable on the phone screen, but once I started viewing the images on the computer, I noticed that there were some issues with these raw files that were a little more, I guess, of an issue than other phones that I've used in the past, mainly the Nothing phone and the iPhone 14 Pro and 13 Pro. The main issue was noise and artifacting being introduced to the shadows when I made edits to them. Now, for the most part, you can expect this, but it just seemed like with these images, there was more grain and more noise than normal in the shadows when I made adjustments. It wasn't anything egregious or anything that I wouldn't expect. I was just thinking this would be a little bit better. So it didn't meet my expectations for that, especially when I compare it to images I've made with an iPhone. But here's the thing with noise being introduced to shadows, it used to be a big deal, but now with features like denoise in Lightroom, you can easily correct for this even on images that are backlit and shot on a phone. I did a test where I backlit my subject, made some shadow adjustments, and saw all that noise introduced, and as soon as I put denoise on the image, everything looked fine. So it's not really a big deal anymore because of how easy it is to fix your photos if there are issues. Now, speaking of RAW files, something that I loved about this device was the fact that the RAW files and JPEGs were both shown in your picture gallery. This is great for two reasons. One, you can see if anything weird is going on with the exposure for your RAW file, but the main reason why this is important is because it makes file transfers very easy. You can select all the RAW files, drop them into a Google Drive, and you have them right at your disposal on your computer. One big thing that I disliked about this camera was the ultra wide angle lens. I was extremely underwhelmed by it. I don't want to make it sound like every image was bad. There were some good photos made with the ultra wide angle, but this image in particular really kind of disappointed me. There is so much softness in the top of the image. There's a lot of noise and grain. It's not a very clear photo, and the distortion is completely out of control. I couldn't even correct this in Lightroom using Transform, which was a big disappointment. And if I was using this phone every day, I'd be a little bit skeptical of the ultra wide angle camera and not want to use it all the time. Now, one thing about this phone is the fact that it's a constant aperture of 1.8. Now, this probably isn't a big deal for most people, but from a nerdy photographer standpoint, I do want to touch on the fact that a constant 1.8 aperture results in loss of clarity in certain lighting conditions, mainly conditions where there is a lot of light. So that image that I said was so disappointing could have been affected by the fact that it was shot at f1.8 and the shutter speed was 1/5000th of a second. You can get some light diffraction in images like that, so I would love to see this phone have some control over the aperture. As far as I could tell with my research and with testing the camera, you had to shoot at 1.8. It'd be nice for mobile photography in general to have more options with controlling your aperture, because control over an aperture allows you to get a sharper image, especially in those situations where you have a ton of light coming into your camera. Now, before I give my final thoughts on this Galaxy Z Flip 5 and how it performs as a camera, I want to thank today's sponsor, Squarespace. If you are a photographer or a creative in general looking to take your business to the next level, the first thing you can do is build a professional website, and no one makes it easier than Squarespace. Squarespace is what I built evanramp.com on, and it took me only one day to build that site using their drag and drop templates, and you can check out my site for yourself. I think it looks very professional, and if you like the way it looks, you can go to some of the links in the description on today's video and follow one of those tutorials so you can build a site that looks just like it. Now, aside from a professional look, Squarespace allows you to do so much with your business. If you're looking to sell products, whether it's digital or physical, you can use all the e-commerce tools that Squarespace provides. Or if you're looking to connect with your audience, you can utilize all the email marketing tools that Squarespace has. Or you can take this to the next level and add scheduling tools to your website to allow potential clients to book you directly for shoots and sign up for time slots right from your website. Squarespace is something your creative business needs, and they're hooking up the channel with 10% off today. You can go to squarespace.com/evanramp, start a free trial, follow one of those tutorials that's linked in the description down below, and when you're ready to sign up, you can use code evanramp to save 10%. That's squarespace.com/evanramp to start a free trial and use code evanramp at checkout to save 10%. Thank you to Squarespace for sponsoring today's video. So my final thoughts on the Z Flip 5 from a professional photographer's perspective is twofold. In one breath, this camera does absolutely nothing to advance mobile photography and the technology around it. This camera is exactly what you would expect from any other mobile photography device out there. Samsung did not innovate whatsoever in picture making ability. But that is only half the story, because the foldable design on this camera does allow a lot of innovation, and it allows you to do a lot of very cool things, especially if you're someone trying to grow a photography business and you utilize social media. This feels like a phone that is 100% designed for people creating social media content, and the reason being that large screen on the front and the fact that you have a tripod essentially built into the camera. So if you're someone like me who is a photographer growing on social media, you now have the ability to easily and conveniently capture behind the scenes and images of yourself that you can edit, apply your photography skill to, and share on social media. And that convenience is the standout quality of the Z Flip 5. It's not going to replace your camera at all. It's not going to get you a better result than anything else that's out there, but it is going to allow you to easily and conveniently make photos and videos, especially if you're someone who needs a lot of that for social media. So let me know your thoughts on this phone in the comments. Personally, I loved the small design. This felt like having a wallet in my pocket and not a phone or a camera, but I'm interested to hear what everyone thinks about the fold design. Do you think it's a gimmick, or is there an actual practical application for it? Hit the thumbs up button on today's video, subscribe if you are not yet, and remember, if you want to learn the path I use to grow my creative business and be able to do this professionally, you can go to moderncreativemoney.com and get all that information. Appreciate y'all watching today. I'll see y'all in the next one, and let me know if you want to see more mobile photography videos on this channel, because I'm having a lot of fun making these.